Hey guys, welcome back to Pure Grade Puroresu. This is my 13th episode. 13, unlucky, but we had bad luck when I did last week's episode. Audacity fucked me over, deleted my review, so hopefully we won't have any issues today. And I certainly hope not, because damn, what a great show this was. Obviously, you can tell by the title, I'm reviewing New Japan's 47th anniversary show. So yeah, it happened last night. I was thinking to myself, look, should I stay up and watch this live? Maybe I want to get a bit of sleep, These shows, when they air in Japan, they're a bit later in New Zealand by I think 4 or 6 hours. But damn, I'm so fucking glad I stayed up to watch this, because this show was fantastic. Let's get, I feel like I always do this. I always say, let's get right into it. Then I'm like, oh, actually I got a few little comments. Guys, just stay with me. I've got 2 comments. Okay, first of all, I think I made it public that I was planning on doing a preview episode for this anniversary show, as well as a preview episode for the New Japan Cup. Now, the New Japan Cup, I've actually done a joint preview with my friend Tyler Kuhn-Williams and his friend Franklin. That's up on Tyler's YouTube channel, so hopefully I should have the ability to link this YouTube video in the show notes or in the notes on the YouTube video. And I didn't end up doing my own Pure Grade Puroresu episode, which would have been, more centered around me and my own ideas. And not that I didn't mind hearing the ideas of Tyler and Franklin, but they were more interested in just going over pure predictions, and I was a bit more interested in saying, what do I think is going to happen in the match? But it was still a really fun time. There was only about an hour. I think we all had some interesting insight to offer, so definitely go check that out. I was also going to do a preview for this anniversary show, but then I was thinking to myself, look, the anniversary show, it's a good card, but it's not exactly a major show. So I was like, it was getting close to the date, and I was like, I don't know if I have enough time to, and the show just isn't that big, so maybe I won't bother. And I don't regret not doing a preview, but as I said, I'm definitely doing a review. So let's just get right into it with the first match. So this is the Bullet Club team of Bad Luck Fale, Chase Owens, Hikuleo, Tama Tonga, and Tangaloa. They were going up against the Young Lions of Ayato Yoshida, Ren Narita, and Shota Umino, as well as MVP, the Most Violent Players, Togi Makabe, and Toru Yano. So, I've been known to usually skip New Japan opening matches unless they have some Young Lions, and even then I'll usually sort of just begrudgingly sit through those matches, just being like, okay, when's Shota coming out? When's Yoshida coming out? I don't care about seeing Tama Tonga and Makabe, stink the place up. But this was actually a pretty solid opening match. So, got some typical solid work from the Young Lions. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. If you follow the show, that is, you've heard me say it. Very passionate, a lot of screaming, a bit melodramatic, but it's got charm to it because they're basic guys just going through basic moves, but they've got so much heart. Tama Tonga, he really impressed me here. He was working really hard at a quick pace, and he had an unusual level of energy. I remember there was one moment where he was unloading some pretty rapid forearms in the corner and then had a drop kick, and I was like, okay, Tama Tonga, he realizes that it's not a big show, but this is a relatively important show, so he's going to put on a bit of effort. This was also Leo Tonga. Why do I still call him Leo Tonga? Was that actually his name? Did I make that up? Didn't he used to be Leo Tonga? Anyways, Hikuleo, this is his first big appearance since coming back from injury. It feels like he's been injured for 2 years. But he's sort of got the Hinare treatment where he was a young lion and he's never really gone on an excursion or had an official graduation. But New Japan sort of you're a post sort of young lion, sort of that that era where that Finlay was in around, what was it, 2016 and 2017. And he got some decent monster spots to him. I actually wasn't watching this match with audio because I was listening to a podcast at the time. But when Hikuleo was in the ring, I was watching the audience's reactions, and they were squirming around in their seats watching him just dominate the young lion. So, getting a good reaction there. Chase Owens, we always go on about Chase, not just me, other New Japan based podcasts. The guy doesn't have the best look, but god fucking damn it, he works so damn hard. He's got a nice variety of moves. He puts so much emphasis and impact into all of them, and he actually ended up getting the win here after he hit Yoshida with his beautiful package pile driver. So yeah, this is a pretty fun match, nice energy all around. I can't remember, isn't this always the case? I can't remember Makabe doing anything. I feel like I remember Yano having some of his signature comedy spots. That doesn't really do much for me either. But yeah, a fine match. Gave this 2 3/4. And guys, that 2 3/4, that was the lowest ranked match on the show, and it wasn't even a bad match. And from here on, this show, I'm not going to say it's from here on it's gold, but from here on, things just go up and up and up and fucking up. Okay, let's get on to the next match. This was Yuji Nagata and Yoshihashi versus Wait a second. No, I've got this around the wrong way. This is Tomohiro Ishii and Yoshihashi. That's the Chaos team going up against Yuji Nagata and Hanare. So obviously this match here is teasing the meeting between Nagata and Ishii in the first round of the New Japan Cup. If you want to hear my brief thoughts on that, remember, check the YouTube link in the description to hear me and Tyler and Franklin go over it. But just to make it very, very short, I'm really, really excited for this match, and they gave a really nice tease here. Ishii and Nagata, they were sort of like trying to trade strikes, but they both kept blocking or evading each other's strikes, but then they finally started unloading, and Nagata looks good. He's of all the, quote-unquote New Japan dads on the roster, he's the one that I think can go the most. He's the one who's always, like, no matter how old he gets and how infrequently he gets singles matches, he always looks great whenever he has, like, one-on-one interactions with people. And here with Ishii, he was, unloading his stiff kicks. He's always just got, like, a great, not really smug, but, like, prideful sort of warrior attitude about him. He's just fantastic. Also, Hanare, my fellow Kiwi dude, he was working so fucking hard here. Obviously, he is also going to be in the New Japan Cup. I think he's up against, it's either Lance Archer, yes, I think it's Lance Archer, and I'm really hoping he at least wins his first round match, because damn, okay, it's a bit of a, a cliche, but because people love to say, oh, Hanare, he's going to be in the never openweight division because, he can throw stiff strikes and show fighting spirit. And even though it's a cliche, that doesn't mean it's not true, because goddamn, that kid is so energetic and passionate. And I've said before how him going for the Maori ethnic-based gimmick, I think it sort of pigeonholes him a bit, where it's like, you're sort of making your ethnicity and your heritage your entire character, and I don't think that's a smart move. But what is a smart move? Him fucking unloading all those vicious chops and slaps and lariats. He looked fantastic here, especially when he was paired up against Yoshihashi, because, Yoshihashi isn't even facing Hanare in the first round, but they were acting as if they were going to, because they had like a bit of a beef. Yoshihashi, he's not the most stiff, most dominant guy, as we all obviously know about Yoshihashi, but he was really getting into Hanare's face and actually unloading some, stiff strikes of his own. So, this match was just, stiff all around, great strikes all around. Even Yoshihashi, I guess arguably the least impressive wrestler in this match, he even got, some great moments to himself where, he ups the pace and he ups his own intensity. I thought this was a very, very fun match. Yoshihashi ended up getting the win over Hanare after, it was a sort of a brain buster. I'm not sure if this was a new finishing move. It could have been a fisherman buster or something. It was sort of like when he does that neck breaker, but instead of allowing the person to drop over his shoulder and then dropping them down, he just hit the normal move as if it was a brainbuster. So some sort of brainbuster variant there. This was actually a very fun match. I gave this 3.25 stars, and look, we are already off onto a fantastic start. So the opening matches, they do not get any worse from here. They just continue being solid just like this. Let's get into the next match. This was the Suzuki-gun team of Suzuki, Taichi, Kanemaru, Desperado, and Taka versus Satoshi Kojima, Taguchi, Honma, Dragon Lee, and Tiger Mask 4. I guess I just realized how sometimes, like, for some certain wrestlers, I'll read out their entire name, and then for others, I'll just read out their most distinguishable first or second name. I don't really have a reason for that. There's no formula. I guess I just do whatever I feel like. So, for this match, we were all expecting, okay, Dragon Lee's in this match. He's on this card. There's no clear reason why he's on this show. Hiromu, please come back. And apparently, according to some sources, I can't confirm this because I don't care enough to research it, but apparently some people have been looking at when Hiromu was posting his, absurd sort of being like, I am 900%, ready, and they're trying to add up the dates from when he was posting the correlating percentages that he claimed he was, ready to return, and apparently it equaled March 6th, this anniversary show, being when he was ready to return. And obviously, spoilers, he didn't end up returning on the entirety of the show. But that left a bit of a damper, but this match was still really good. We got some typical Suzuki-gun arena brawl stuff to start. That wasn't super fun. We got a bit of a tease between Honma and Taichi, who are also going to face off in the first round of the New Japan Cup. Honma, he really can't keep up with Taichi, and it's not saying much. Like, not just put Taichi down, but, of all the main roster guys, he's not the most, speedy guy, but, Taichi, he's good. But yeah, Honma, he still worked pretty hard. He's limited, but he's trying his best. There were some fun macho exchanges between Suzuki and Kojima. They are also having a match in the first round of the New Japan Cup. And I remember, I think it was on the New Japan and Sapporo shows, they were, trading some pretty stiff strikes, some very stiff forearms and, showing a lot of fighting spirit in their opening tag match. And I remember at the time I was thinking, oh, damn, I really hope they do a program here. And hey, what do you know? They're meeting in the first round of the New Japan Cup, so that's very, very exciting. Even Taka, Taguchi, and Tiger Mask, they were also getting some time to shine. I was really surprised because Taguchi, obviously, he came off of his loss to Ishimori in the challenge for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, but they really didn't seem to think, oh, okay, yeah, we're done with Taguchi now. They've actually kept him relatively strong. Just to jump ahead, he ended up getting the win here. He got the win over Taka. I believe he transitioned into the Dodon, which is sort of like his, double underhook facebuster or gutbuster. I don't really know how to describe it, but yeah, he ended up getting the win. So yeah, that was pretty surprising. But he also got some cool moments to himself, running through like his great enziguri or some dives to the outside. And as I said, Tiger Mask 4 and Taka, they also got some cool moments. Taka, he was grappling with Taguchi, and he pulled off some. It's sort of like I never thought of Taka as like a big grappler, because obviously in his heyday in the 90s, he was, the Michinoku Pro guy who was, jumping off the ropes and doing backflips and all that sort of stuff. But I guess as a veteran, he's, gone for the more ground-based game, and that sort of aligns him with, Zack Sabre Jr.'s own grappling style. And yeah, he got some cool moments. Tiger Mask 4, I can't remember exactly what he did, but I do remember, and my notes do say that he worked well. So, the notes never lie. At some point in this match, the pace really massively kicked up. It was as if I was suddenly watching a Dragon Gate match, because we're constantly getting run-ins from all the various members in this 8 or 10 man tag match. We're getting run-on sequences, very strong chemistry, and yeah, it was building up beautifully. And when I'm looking at this lineup, I'm seeing the Suzuki Gun team, and I'm seeing the rather, I guess, limited New Japan home team. I was like, oh, this isn't that great. But yeah, this actually ended up being very fun. Dragon Lee, he was a bit of a disappointment. He didn't get too many great moments, but obviously whenever he got in the ring, that dude's fucking crazy talented. He's younger than me. I think he's 21 or something. It's crazy how much talent he has. And yeah, so good match. I gave this 3.25 stars, but the big disappointment that, they even teased us, because Dragon Lee, he remains in the ring at the end of the match, and he's bowing to all the fans, and we're all like, okay, Hiromu, but he just doesn't come out. So that was very disappointing. Anyways, next match we had, this was Shingo and Bushi versus Sho and Yo. So I've made some pre-match notes here, just because I think they're important to consider for the context of this match. So I have complained in depth about the booking of Sho and Yo. They burst onto the scene, winning the junior tag titles immediately on their re-debut in the main roster, and then they lost them at Wrestle Kingdom. And I'm not going to go too in depth into, my whole reasoning for why this is bad. I guess I'll just give a sort of brief overview. So first of all, they had a very quick redemption. I thought, okay, they lost at Wrestle Kingdom, but they were so strong leading up to that, immediately from their re-debut, I thought, okay, this isn't a big issue. But then they earned a rematch with the Bucks for no clear reason. Then they immediately won the titles back a month later. So look, you've already lost the opportunity to go through their first redemption arc because you rushed it and there was no story to it. And then they just went on a massive losing streak. I think they immediately lost the titles back to the Suzuki Gun team of Desperado and Kanemaru. They constantly earned back, title challenges, and they'd constantly lose. At Dominion, when they were challenging, I thought, okay, they're finally going to win the titles back, and this is going to be like their true redemption. Then they lost that, even though they'd beaten both Kanemaru and Desperado one-on-one in the Best of the Super Juniors tournament. And then they won the Super Junior Tag tournament thing, and then I was like, okay, they're finally going to win the titles back at Wrestle Kingdom. And no, they had a 5-minute long match where Sho was the one, of all people, to eat the pin. So, yeah, these junior tag titles have not been booked well at all, I believe. I was very confident when Sho and Yo returned and immediately got the rocket, but yeah, ever since then, they've just been super disappointing. So, going into this match, I was thinking to myself, okay, there's still no discernible singles career path for either Sho and Yo, so I can easily imagine them winning the titles here, because I think that New Japan does sort of want to finally move along with Shingo. They could give him a short reign, which doesn't really mean much because, not only are these titles rather badly booked, but also he's only held the titles for 2 months at this point if he loses them here. But yeah, I was thinking to myself, Shingo, he needs the titles to come off so he can be believable in the Best of the Super Juniors, and New Japan probably won't be pushing Sho or Yo just yet. And yeah, that's actually what ended up happening, because Sho and Yo ended up winning their titles back after well over a year of them constantly struggling to win them back. They win them back here at the anniversary show, and there was pretty much no story to it. They had already beaten Shingo and Bushi in the Super Junior Tag tournament, I believe. and then they lost to them. They were actually pinned by them, again, as I said, Shingo over Sho in the Wrestle Kingdom match. And then they earned their rematch here, basically just by coming out and attacking Shingo and Bushi. So, there's no real story here at all. But the match itself, let's get into that, because this match was actually quite good. So, first of all, immediately we had these big beefy exchanges from Shingo and Sho, and obviously that's the pairing that has been really, really heavily focused on by New Japan ever since Shingo was introduced. I think from his very first match in New Japan, even, I think he was going immediately after Sho, and they're both sort of short but really buff dudes, so they've got speed and they have a lot of power, so that was fantastic. There were big lariats all around. Sho crashed into the guardrail on a dive at one point when he and Yo were doing the stereo dives, and his leg really smashed into the guardrail, and he immediately started gripping it, and I was like, okay, is he actually in pain? Because obviously I don't think you can really say, oh yeah, he crashed into the guardrail, that was totally planned, because how could you even plan that so that this particular part of your limb landed just on the guardrail? And would you even want to do that and risk actually seriously injuring yourself just for a small plot point in the match? But luckily that didn't end up being part of the match, and it was actually Sho's arm which ended up being worked over. So I thought they might have called an audible and be like, hey, Sho actually did sort of, or at least he could have believably injured his leg on this move. Why don't we just target this limb instead? But they decided not to do that. And at this point, the match sort of died down a bit. We got Shingo and Bushi become more dominant as they worked over Sho and Yo, and the match sort of became a bit of a brawl fest. Shingo's always really good in control because dude just looks like a massive monster. Whenever he's throwing just forearms down or clubbing away at Sho and Yo, it really does look believable. From there, Sho and Yo continued to stand out. Sho was doing a fantastic job of selling, and that's interesting because it's usually Sho who's the big monster, acting like Shingo for his team, who runs through, going through all of his power moves and big strikes. And it's usually Yo who is the one who gets the, spotlight to sell and, be all sympathetic. But here it was Sho. He did a very great job working alongside Shingo, who, as I've said ad nauseum, has a fantastic, onslaught sort of offense. So he was doing a really good job there. And Yo, he was actually sort of the more flashy one here. It's always been the style of Sho to be, more power-based, a bit of a powerhouse, and Yo's always the one who goes for flashy moves. He's got the spot where he rolls out of the ropes or out of the ring while holding the ropes, then back in and hits a super kick. He's showing a lot of nice flair here. His movement and attacks, they all look pretty smooth. Sho was having his right arm worked over, as I said, a variety of different holds and, attacks from Shingo and Bushi. We started getting some fun tag team moves from both teams, so I enjoyed that, but sadly, Yo, and I've had this issue with him. It's crazy because he used to be so damn good as a young lion. Him and Sho, or should I say he and Sho, to be grammatically or contextually correct, whatever the fuck. Sho and Yo, they were pretty even as young lions, but ever since re-debuting in the main roster, Sho has totally outclassed Yo. It feels so weird saying Sho and Yo. Just similar names, just, get tongue twisted. But yeah, Yo, whenever he gets a big single spot to himself, he usually looks sort of awkward. And that's not just on him, because, obviously you can also say, oh, well, Bushi wasn't in this position, Shingo wasn't aware of this spot. But the main factor usually always seems to be Yo just hitting moves without proper contact or connection or, sort of awkward technique. Even Roppongi 3K themselves, I'm sad to say, I enjoy them as a team, as characters, but a lot of their tag team moves, they've had about, at least a year and a half now, a lot of their tag team moves still just don't come off super smooth. Their 3K, that sometimes looks a bit awkward. They also try to repeat Roppongi Vice's double knee attack that Rocky Romero and Beretta would do, but they can never reach the height, and they never get, the proper impact or, the proper looking technique on it. Again, I still really enjoy them. They're both, I really hope the best for both of them. I hope they continue to progress as wrestlers, but it's you've had over a year and a half now, coming up on 2 years, and why have you not got these tag team sequences and spots down to a T? It's just, it's just annoying. We started getting a really good pace because Sho, he got misted by Bushi, and then he was hit by Shingo's joint X finisher with Bushi, and at that moment I was like, okay, Bushi missed a tag team finisher all on Sho, who, usually unjustly gets pinned. I think the match is over right here, but luckily Yo made the save, and at that moment I was like, okay, this match is moving from being, a pretty good display to being, rather exciting. Again, Sho was selling fantastically at this moment. He was still misted, and then Bushi was like, okay, I'm going to put this, this blonde-haired dickhead away. He went up to the top rope, and he went for his X finisher again. Is it called the X? I feel like I feel like Bushi is such a non-factor in New Japan that he never actually ends up getting the pin in a match. He's usually the one to eat the pin. So I can't actually remember if it's called the X. I just know he does the X, like pose with his arms forming an X before then. Anyways, he goes for that move, but Sho, being a powerhouse, he catches him, and then Yo gets back in the ring. Yo has already, I believe, like done some damage to Shingo on the outside to keep Shingo outside, and then Sho lifts Bushi up in the air, and Yo transitions that into the 3D move, and or is it the 3K move? Yeah, it's both the 3D from the Dudleys and the 3K from there. And yeah, I just made a total butchery of that little finishing thing while just running through the finish. But yeah, it was actually a really cool spot. And look, I always say this, I thought the match ended a bit too quickly there, but it was a very nice finish. Yeah, so Sho and Yo are the junior champions again, without any story, as I've said. I'm at least glad they have the titles, because I think as a tag team, they have still worked hard. Like, despite my issues that I mentioned, they still have worked hard as a team these last, few years. So it is good to see them as champions again. Let's have our fingers crossed that this is going to imply a bit of thought being put into the junior tag division from here on. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. Obviously, I also hope that this implies a good run for Shingo in the best of the Super Juniors. I feel like New Japan's probably going to sit on Shingo for like another year. They usually do that with guys. They usually wait like just a year too long to, like guys who aren't established, I mean, they usually wait like a year too long to finally start pushing them. So I'm sort of worried they'll do that with Shingo here. Like, I feel like they'll have him just miss out on the, like finals. He'll probably be strong, like the top half of the bracket at the very least. But yeah, I would love for him to actually just make the finals, if not win it, because I don't really want to see Shingo messing around with Bushi in these tag matches. And I've already seen him going up against, Desperado and Kanemaru and Sho and Yo a million times already in the few months he's been here. Let's get something new. I want to see him up against, Ishimori or Dragon Lee. So yeah, anyways, a good match. I gave this 3.5 stars. At this point in the show, this was the best match. There was a very strong pace. The teams themselves interacting, they did have good chemistry. The pace increased nicely. We're getting a lot of exciting near falls. Some very cool moments, especially as I've said from Shingo and Sho. Yeah, let's move on to the next match, which I was very surprised by. It actually upped, it pushed past the junior tag match and was actually remarkably better than that. This was Ishimori from Bullet Club defending his junior heavyweight title against the 11 or 12 time junior champ Jushin Thunder Liger. Just like with the junior tag title match, I'll also just make a few pre-match notes here. First of all, I've already explained before in previous New Japan reviews and previews I've done on Pure Grade Pro Wrestling how Liger was never someone who, in his prime, really impressed me. I understood that he was considered a legend for, coming up with all these particular moves and spots, but when I would watch him, he was never the most athletically or acrobatically impressive wrestler I'd seen. I was more alongside the likes of Sayama or Otani or Kanemoto as being, the best juniors I'd seen. And it's really in recent years where he's been playing the veteran role and he's not at all aerial based, he's much more ground based or power based, that he's really stood out to me. Like, I think he's, like, it sounds totally absurd, I'm sure, to a lot of people, but I genuinely think he's having way more great singles matches now when he's far past his prime than he was actually having in his prime. And don't get me wrong, he had plenty of great matches in the 90s, especially alongside the likes of Otani, but so many other matches he had would just fall flat, especially a lot of his series with Sasuke. I thought their Super J Cup match was very good, but every other match they've had, which has been rather highly acclaimed, has just fallen flat for me. It's been like, okay, this is okay, but they just feel sort of like spot fests or with matches without thought. But with him playing the role of the junior hero who's past his prime, trying to keep up with all the hot shots in the current New Japan division, that just leads to so many great stories and all these very few singles matches he's had. And even going back to his match with Taichi in the 2017 Best of the Super Juniors, and I think also that year when he faced Hiromu, those were very, very good matches. And just last year, I think it was 2018, he went up against Ospreay when it was meant to be Liger versus Mysterio, and that was another very good match. So yeah, Liger in his 55 or something, I think he's way better than when he was 30 or 20. And yeah, Ishimori, he was an interesting case because, again, if you listen to the show, you probably know my criticisms of Ishimori. He burst onto the New Japan scene. He was immediately pushed as a serious contender. He ended up losing in the Best of the Super Juniors finals to Hiromu, and it's like, okay, that's okay. He's still a bit of an outsider to New Japan. He only just signed, and he's probably going to have, big things in store. And then he just wasted away on tag matches with God and ended up winning the never openweight titles, but the six-man titles, but who really gives a shit about those? Then he was just heavily shoehorned into a match with Kushida. It was sort of just like like you felt they were just doing that match because like in the kayfabe world, it's like the universe was just pulling them together because they hadn't had a match, and you knew that New Japan still wanted to do something with Ishimori, so they just forced him into that match. They had a 10-minute, very, very unremarkable, barely junior-centric match at all. I think I gave that like 3 stars. So yeah, I was really, really down on Ishimori's first year in New Japan. He started off so hot. Well, I wouldn't say he started off hot, but he did reach those really hot heights. Hot heights. He reached those high heights with Hiromu, and then he sort of just dwindled down and down. But he had a very good, I'd say even a low-key great match with Taguchi at the New Beginning in Sapporo or Osaka show. I can't remember which one. So I was like, okay, Ishimori, you've done very well. Let's see what you can do here. So finally, let's get to this match. I'll just get out of the way. Very, very good match. I gave this 3 3/4 stars. So Liger, we've already said, he's broken down, he's past his prime, he's doing his best to keep up with these, speedy little hot heads like Ishimori, so he's immediately going for the groundwork, and he is dominating Ishimori with holds, and it's very basic, but there is strategy, which I love. I love in any media form, when there is a fight, I love strategy. I don't just want pure violence. Like, I can still appreciate that, like, Shibata versus Ishii matches, but I also love strategy. So the idea here is Liger is trying to ground Ishimori because, hey guys, in case you didn't know, Ishimori is a fucking aerial-based high flyer. And if Liger keeps him on the ground and uses his, 20 or 30 years plus experience advantage over Ishimori to just wear him down, wear out his limbs, then he can totally ruin Ishimori's offense or any chance he has of delivering his offense. And it was very fun seeing the strategy from Liger, especially as he's running through all of his signature holds. He's going for the surfboard and the Romero special, or is it the Romero hold? They're actually very similar moves. For the longest time, I get them confused. And actually, I think I still get them confused because there's one where he has the opponent's legs on either side of his body, and then there's another where he actually lifts them up into the air using his legs to wrap around their legs. Anyways, you guys don't care about that, but yeah, the match was very good. Right away we're going for an interesting story that we rarely ever see in New Japan, and that's not to say that we don't see matches from New Japan that have psychology and story. I just mean this sort of psychology and story we don't usually see. Ishimori eventually regained some control, and he started bringing out his own holds. So look, he gains control, but he doesn't immediately go for his aerial offense because I guess the idea is he can't, Liger's not in position for these holds. Plus, Ishimori has just had his entire body worked over by Liger, so the best he can do is bring out his own sort of beatdown tactics and a sort of a bit of brawling as well, which I found pretty cool. Immediately though, Liger started pulling out a bunch more signature moves of his to re-establish control. So he hit his, trademark senton off the apron, hit his brainbuster on the outside, which was cool, and he also hit his Shote palm strike. So then it was like, okay, Liger, he's moved past his ground-based stuff, he's going for his power-based stuff. But then Ishimori, he was like, okay, now it's time for me to start bringing out my signature stuff. And that's when he started bringing out his dives and other speed-based attacks. So this match, it was very interesting because it felt like it was sort of very 50-50 between them. It starts with both of them gaining control in a similar way, so they're both going through sort of, holds and ground-based work, and then they're both going for their signature moves. For Liger, it's his, pure power with, his brain busters and his strikes, and obviously for Ishimori, it's his speed-based and dive moves, coming off the ropes and jumping off the ropes, that sort of thing. So I guess the match felt sort of formulaic in that way, but I really appreciated it because, again, we don't really get that sort of style, and we're showing off the range of both guys. So we have both of them working alongside their signature style and then selling for the signature style of the other guy. So from there, with that already very solidly established foundation for the match, we move to the sort of typical New Japan big move or big moment trading sequence of the match. So from there, Ishimori, he managed to counter Liger's, trademark rolling, I think it's Capo or Capo kick. He managed to roll Liger's leg over, and then he established a crossface, and that was a very strong moment. It's sort of difficult in this day and age to get a submission sequence over, but Ishimori, his crossface looked brilliant, and obviously Liger, even though he's got the mask on, he does a fantastic job of, selling his pain and, his anguish, desperation to get out of that hold, especially with this crowd, which is so heavily pro Liger. It was a great moment. And from there, Liger got his own fantastic hope spots / near falls. He went for a cradle on Ishimori, similar to the one that he hit on Ishimori on their on a Rising match, which I thought was a brilliant piece of booking. I've heard other podcasts, bigger than mine, already comment on this, but look, this is an original thought of my own. I thought this was fantastic in that match. I'll just quickly go into that. So basically we have Jonathan Gresham going up against Robbie Eagles and totally outclassing Eagles with his grappling, and that happens for 5 or so minutes, and then once Ishimori and Liger finally tag in, Liger immediately cradles Ishimori up and gets the win in like their first interaction, their first contact, and I thought that was brilliant. And so that was a nice little throwback here to what they're trying to do with this match. And after that, Liger even hit a Thez press, and that is the move that I most associate with Jumbo Tsuruta from, what I've seen of Jumbo is in 90s All Japan, and it's always a sort of very awkward looking, just like body splash, like front facing body splash. But it was a cool moment because it's like, oh, this is a move that Liger would have used, probably used back in the 90s, and so it's awesome to see him using it against Ishimori. And back in like 90s All Japan, when I'd see Jumbo use it, it would always look really, really sloppy. But because kayfabe was still a bit alive back then, and because the move was protected a bit, the crowds would buy into it. But here, I genuinely bought into it because it was just like the idea of Liger, this 50-year-old guy past his prime, going up against this young hotshot Ishimori, going back to like sort of classic wrestling moves, the Thez press, from Lou Thez, I'm assuming, like surely that's where it's got its namesake from. And Ishimori sold it fantastically, and he was struggling under Liger's, I guess sort of weight advantage, and that was another great little moment. But then Ishimori, he was like, you know what, we're going to have to ruin everything. He locked on the crossface once again, and he ended up getting the win. And that was another great little sequence because I was thinking to myself, okay, Liger has already escaped the crossface once. This is building up a lot of suspense for this current second crossface sequence. So I could either imagine this being purposeful so that we build up a great amount of hype for when Liger finally reaches the ropes for a second time, but I was also thinking there's enough credibility here for this crossface sequence to also end the match itself. And that's what ended up happening. And yeah, this was a very, very good match. A great display of range from both guys with some very strong chemistry. Ishimori is lightning quick, and Liger just he can keep up with him to the extent that he actually can't keep up with him speed based, but he works around Ishimori's style, or I should say he works around his own style to keep up with Ishimori. So we even got a bunch of convincing near falls and tense exciting moments, and it's surprising to think that we're getting this from 55 or however old Liger. But yeah, the guy just doesn't age, I guess. He's always working hard. Like, even though I wasn't super into his work in the 90s, I never thought he wasn't like, a very good wrestler. I never thought like he couldn't, keep some strong chemistry and pace. But I genuinely just think that Liger has only improved in age, and as he moves into this role as the veteran who has to work alongside the young guys and put them over, he was fantastic. And he got a great, show of support from the crowd post-match. They followed him for years. They all love and respect what he's done. And yeah, I guess it's just crazy for me where it's like, I love Liger, I love this current iteration of Liger so damn much. And then when I go back and watch his 90s stuff, it just doesn't connect with me as much. But you know what? I'm just glad that I can at least cheer alongside people with Liger and get hyped, even if it's for different reasons, because other people say, oh, Liger, that awesome match from the 90s. And I'm like, oh, Liger, that awesome match he had last week against, some random dude, like Ishimori or Ospreay or Hiromu. Those are the matches I point to, as I've said. But look, I'm repeating myself. This was a very good match. At this point in the show, I was like, okay, I'm looking at the rest of the card. I'm going to be surprised if there is a match that is going to top this. Or I should say, like, the main event, I did expect to top this, but I was also thinking the main event can also easily just fall into shenanigans nonsense. So, maybe this Ishimori versus Liger match, maybe that's the best we're going to get. In the post-match for Ishimori versus Liger, I was once again heartbroken as we did not get an appearance from Hiromu. They did a fantastic, likely intentional job of teasing us of that, as we had, Liger, he's escorted out of the arena, he gets a bunch of applause, and then Ishimori goes on the mic and he's saying to himself, according to translations, he's like, I'm looking for an opponent for the ROH, MSG show. I want to face someone from ROH, so, come out. And then who comes out but Dragon Lee? So at this moment, I'm like, okay, it's not Hiromu, but, this is basically Hiromu's second person. This is his second identity, Dragon Lee. Surely Hiromu's going to come in somehow. And Dragon Lee comes down. He makes the announcement that he's not actually an ROH guy. Obviously he's from CMLL, but he would like to challenge for Ishimori's junior heavyweight title. So look, that sounds like a fucking awesome match. Like, think like we're so. As fans who love Hiromu, we're so fucking sad. We were like, oh, Hiromu hasn't come back already. When's he going to come back? But guys, we need to focus on this. We're getting Dragon Lee versus Ishimori. That should be total flippy shit heaven. That should be fantastic. And it's going to be in front of a, likely red hot ROH, Western crowd at MSG. That should be fantastic. That could easily be the match of the night of no matter who wins the New Japan Cup, I would still say that Ishimori versus Dragon Lee still has a very, very high chance of being match of the night on that show. But look, I understand. We just can't help but be worried about Hiromu. It's like, okay, he's been saying that he's ready to return. On every big show, we constantly think, we constantly look at the card and we're like, okay, at this moment, before this match and after this match, this is when it makes the most sense for Hiromu to return and he can align himself with LIJ, or he can come out and attack this person, or blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we just keep getting, blue balled. We keep getting disappointed. And I'm starting to think, like, when the fuck is Hiromu coming back? Because I think he got injured in, what was it, July or August or September or something. And apparently he is, basically healed up. So maybe New Japan is just waiting for the right moment. But I thought it would have been so great here. Maybe they were going to actually have him debut. Not debut. Maybe they were going to have Hiromu return here at that show, which is why he was teasing all those percentages and dates, which, apparently other fans said they calculated. We have to trust them. And they said, it points to him supposedly returning on March 6th at the anniversary show. But then maybe New Japan was like, no, wait, we can save this match for a way bigger show, maybe Dominion. And, that would make sense to me. Obviously, a match against Dragon Lee, who is, very highly respected and, supported by the New Japan fans, despite being an outsider. So, like, okay, we can get a match out of Ishimori here, give him one more notch in his, title reign, and then we can bring Hiromu back in a bigger capacity. So I guess I'm thinking, I guess I'm asking myself, do I expect Hiromu to return at the MSG show after Ishimori has beaten Dragon Lee, or after Dragon Lee has actually beaten Ishimori? Because wouldn't that be a fantastic story? Dragon Lee has then claimed the title that Hiromu had, which he actually defeated Dragon Lee for, but then had to go out for an injury break because of Dragon Lee breaking his neck in that match. That's a ready set story right there, and I think that would be awesome. Even if we have to, I guess, sort of take the gas off of Ishimori, and who's had a relatively good, if not great, reign as champion thus far, I would be keen on that, because I think there's way more you can get out of a story with Hiromu going up against, his, not only his rival, but the guy that broke his damn neck. There's way more interest in that story than doing Hiromu versus Ishimori, and they should definitely return to that match at some point. I'm thinking maybe Hiromu defeats Dragon Lee at whatever next match they have after MSG. Actually, would that even work? I'm trying to think. No, that could still work at Dominion, because Hiromu could go through and win Best of the Super Juniors, then he could face Dragon Lee at Dominion, and I think there'll be a big money match, and especially us Western fans, we would eat that shit up. The story and the prospective flippy shit, that would be fantastic. And then you can probably do Ishimori, rematching Hiromu from their Best of the Super Juniors final match, and and then maybe you can get the title back onto Ishimori there, and then you can build up to them having yet another match, a third match at Wrestle Kingdom, where you can sort of crown Hiromu in a really big capacity. But again, I'm just fantasy booking at this point. So after Ishimori and Dragon Lee had made their intentions clear to have a title match at MSG, we looked to the monitor, or I guess the big screen. What do I actually call that? Yeah, I guess the big screen in the arena, and they announced the G1 dates and venues. So look, I'm not like a hardcore New Japan fan where I can be like, oh yes, this is the importance of this show taking place at this venue in this city on this date. But I guess the only thing I'll comment on is that once again this year, with I believe Sumo Hall still being shut, they are going to be doing the final 3 days of the G1 in the Nippon Budokan. So that's pretty cool. They did it last year. They did relatively well. Two of the nights, the final 2 nights, they got 12,000 in there, which I think is at least near capacity, if not full. And on the first night, they only got 6,000, but that was with an Okada versus Tanahashi match, which has been done to death over the last 5, 6, 7 years. So that's understandable. Obviously, we hope to see, greater attendance records. Supposedly, New Japan has been gaining in fans and support, worldwide ever since 2012. So hopefully, we hope to see those Budokan numbers way higher across all 3 dates. But can't really say too much else. Let's get to the penultimate match on the show. Now this, you want to talk about random tag matches that New Japan throws together? This was probably the most stacked multi-man tag match that they've had in a long, long time. So this was Okada, Tanahashi, and Goto versus Naito, Sanada, and Evil. So very, very stacked tag match. The only potentially weak link there or sloucher is Goto, and that's just because Goto has disappointed me so many times when he's been given the spotlight, so I have a bit of a bias against him. But even then, I'm thinking to myself, look, Goto, he's a person. He's not a wrestler. He's a person. Well, he is a wrestler, but he's also a person. He realizes the importance of this match, and he realizes that everyone else, all the way down to Tama Tonga and Chase Owens and the Young Lions, has been working really, really hard on the show. So he was, I know Goto. He's like, okay, I'm not the best wrestler, but I've got a fan base of Western fans that for some reason think I'm hot shit, And I'm not saying he's bad. I just don't think he's awesome. But he's like, you know what? I've got to put on a good showing. And yeah, he didn't stand out, but everyone here worked really well. As I said, no slouches. What was interesting first of all was, and maybe this is going to be typical Lewis reading into shit, reading too much into little New Japan moments, being like, oh yeah, but Goto, he's amazing, he's my god. He plants storyline points, a million years ahead. So you got to be really smart to read all the nuances. But I genuinely think they were hinting or foreshadowing at an Okada Naito rematch for Wrestle Kingdom. And you're probably thinking, okay, Lewis, this is a random tag match on a relatively middling show for New Japan. Not to say it's bad, but in terms of importance, the anniversary show is usually never the biggest show of the year. So Lewis, why do you think that this is teasing that? And I'll tell you why. Because Okada and Naito started off, and that's pretty much it. But literally, there was their interactions, they were so basic, but they're so speedy, and both, the story of Okada, the story of Naito. Maybe I'm just being played on, maybe they're both playing on my heartstrings because I care about both, characters so much, where I'm just thinking to myself, oh, I'm finding importance in every little thing they do and every little look they take at each other, and so I'm just tricking myself into being like, oh, there must be something big here, but. Surely, why would New Japan have Okada and Naito start off, and why would they make a big deal of it the way they did with Okada having to convince Goto and Tanahashi to go to the side, and then Naito taking ages before eventually establishing that he's going to start off against Okada? Look, we've never really got a total blowaway match between Okada and Naito. People popularly considered their first match back in 2012 when Okada first came back from his excursion, and that was his first defense against Naito. They usually considered that to be their best match. I would say it was their Wrestle Kingdom, I think, 12 match. I thought that was actually phenomenal, but we're still waiting for that, pure 5-star classic between them. So, I'm still really, really hoping we get Okada Naito 3, 4, or 5, I can't even remember at this point, at Wrestle Kingdom 14, in 2020. So, yeah, basically, this match was immediately good because, two of my favorites, Okada and Naito, not only two of my favorites, but two of my favorites in a very long historied rivalry. Is that the term, historied rivalry? They started this off, and, that put this match on, an immediate good foot. Now, this ended up being a very solid tag match, but I don't have too many direct notes to make, or at least that I did make at the time. My one big note was that the story here was Tanahashi having I believe it was his leg worked over by all of LIJ. And, Tanahashi, he's one of the best sellers out there, a bit melodramatic at times, but you can't deny he just puts so much, passion into his performances, and he's just one of the most sympathetic baby faces out there. So it was really cool seeing, Sanada, that's his name. Obviously easy to get them confused. They look so similar. Sanada, Evil, and Naito, they're working over Tanahashi's leg, and, Tanahashi giving a good selling performance, that's all fun. And then the match sort of became, not to demean it as a spot fest, but, all the guys start going in and getting their 2 minutes to shine. Okada gets an extended sequence where he survives all that's thrown at him, and he gets his signature moves. The same happens for Goto, same happens for Naito, and it's all fun because all 6 of these guys incredibly talented, and even though I did sort of half jokingly, half seriously criticize Goto for being the least impressive of these 6 wrestlers, I still think he's very good, even a great wrestler, and everyone's working really hard, strong chemistry all around. Look, you look at these guys, you'd say, what, 3 of these guys are, some of the greatest wrestlers of all time. The other 3 are very, very solid, if not great, top 50 wrestlers probably. This match it was impossible for this match to be at all bad. And this ended up being a pretty good match. I gave this 3.5 stars. It was cool just seeing a bunch of signature moves from all these guys, and, also them trying to counter each other's signature moves, strong pace. And it was actually Sanada who ended up eating the fall here, as he'd actually locked Goto. He hadn't totally locked Goto in the Dragon Sleeper, but he did have it, but then Goto rolled through and ended up getting his, and it's interesting they chose this, I'll get into that in a moment. He got a sort of random roll-up cradle sort of variant pin over Sanada, and it wasn't slow, but getting into the move itself, it did take a while, and then he just held Sanada there, and Red Shoes, I'm pretty sure it was Red Shoes counted the 3, and Goto got the win. And this throws me back to 2016, when the story was that Goto was using this very move, I'm pretty sure. It was he had his own name for it, it was Japanese, so I can't remember. I think it started with K or something, and it was a sort of, it's meant to be sort of a strategic, intelligent sort of pin, where it's cradling the opponent and basically locking their limbs entirely up. It's sort of basically like Sanada's what do you call it, the Paradise Lock, except it's a Paradise Lock pin. That's how I sort of think of it. So it's interesting that they chose Goto to get the win with that particular move over Sonata here, because it's saying, maybe Goto is going to have a solid run in the New Japan Cup, maybe harkening back to 2016 when he used that very same odd pin and he made it all the way through to the finals against Naito. So, maybe that, but I think I actually have Goto losing in the first round of the bracket. I can't remember who I have. I think he is up against Sonata now that I think of it. I don't think I thought of this at the time, but yeah, I think he is facing Sonata at the time, in the New Japan Cup first round. So, and I have Sonata, I think, beating Goto. And yeah, so I guess I just realized there was probably a nice little tease between them. Goto's got the upper hand going into their match. I do think Sonata's going to get the win, and this sort of makes it more obvious, doesn't it? Because then would have Sonata getting his win back only, like a few days or a week later, depending on when their first round match happens. But yeah, as I said, solid match. Another damn good match on the show. I give this 3.5 stars. But look, there was also some interesting stuff in the post-match, because in the post-match, Goto, Tanahashi, and Okada, they all took turns going on the mic, basically declaring their intentions to win the New Japan Cup. And it was very adorable, because, the fans are sort of, they're buying into the comedy of each guy, each wrestler in front of their tag team partner, and they just won the match, immediately being like, okay, I'm starting to, turn on you a bit, because I'm going to say that I'm the guy that's going to win. No, I'm the guy that's going to win. So that was pretty funny. Also, Naito, he went to the commentary booth where Ibushi had been on the Japanese commentary side, and he sort of started getting in his face, sort of mocking him, doing his typical LIJ, shtick. That's pretty fun. I also have, just out of interest, if you're not going to bother listening to my preview alongside Tyler and Franklin, which you should do that, by the way, I actually have Ibushi beating Naito in the first round. That'll be a bit of an upset. So yeah, also we're seeing a bit of a tease between them two there. That's cool. But look, guys, let's just get on to what we're all here to talk about. I feel like I always say that with the main events. But look, this was a very polarizing match. And so I was thinking to myself going in, this is either going to be surprisingly awesome or it's going to be rather middling. It's going to be very disappointing. And wouldn't you fucking know it, I'm losing my word, this match was fucking awesome. Holy shit. This is my immediate number 2 match of the year. It's still behind Tanahashi versus Omega at Wrestle Kingdom, but holy shit, of all the other matches excluding that one that I've seen this year, this totally blows them out of the way. This was a total resurgence for Jay White, and it's hilarious because his last best match that he ever had was with Ospreay back in 2017 in ROH. And here, it was Ospreay is up against once again, and they worked a totally different style of match, at least from what I can remember, and once again, they were fucking fantastic. And this was not at all, a situation where Ospreay is carrying Jay White, That is, I was thinking myself, that could be an issue because we're all saying, oh, Ospreay, one of the best 10 wrestlers in the world, he can't have a bad match with anyone. So if he has a bad match here, we know that Jay White is totally screwed in the in-ring department. But no, Jay White fucking held up his end of the bargain, and Ospreay was fantastic as he always is, and yeah, this match was fucking awesome. I guess I'll just go into the actual detail and I can explain why I myself, Lewis, Pure Grade Pro Wrest, loved this match. This was the sort of epic match where it starts off relatively slow and you can tell, okay, they're going very story heavy here. This is either going to totally bite it in the ass or it's going to lead to a fantastic match. And yeah, guys, this ended up being the latter. So first of all, Ospreay starts the match and, we know Ospreay, hot-headed, high flyer, always going for the big spots. He immediately wants to lock up, he doesn't want to lock up. He wants to fucking kick Jay White in the face. But Jay White, he's immediately going for strategy. I say strategy, he's being a bit of a coward. He's, running to the outside and, he's trying to dictate the pace. But look, that is, like, in the kayfabe of the wrestling world, that is a valuable strategy. If he's not going to be penalized for simply going outside the ring, it's not like he's going to lose points, then why not do it? It's immediately going to frustrate Ospreay, and it's going to show that Jay White is being strategic. He's trying to dictate the pace. He's trying to say, no, Ospreay, we're going to wrestle on my terms. And so Ospreay, he continued sort of, trying to get into Jay White's face, and he did, have some success. He started pulling off some of his, less demanding dives, but still impressive. Also his acrobatic moves, and Jay White, he was getting a bit shocked. But then I believe it was when Ospreay was distracted by Jado or Geto, I can't really remember. That was when Jay White really started taking control, and goddamn. Like, I haven't noticed this before, but it was really on display here. Jay White is vicious. Like, they definitely play him off as a powerhouse. Like, they mostly play him off as a coward who has to cheat, but damn, when he was just throwing Ospreay into those barricades, or when he was hitting those Saito suplexes, he was fantastic. And look, Jay White kept that level of arrogance and aggression all match long. And his character work, I've already said, like, even though I've had all my issues with Jay White, which aren't big issues, but, basically saying I don't think he's top 4 in New Japan in order to deserve being in the quote-unquote big 4 ranking, I've always said I love his character work. He's the most charismatic wrestler in New Japan. He has the most unique character. He comes across as believable. He actually does come across as someone who's a bit of a dickhead. Obviously I've seen him in interviews and he's very charming, but then, like, as a wrestler, it's so fucking easy to hate this guy with that smug little fucking, dickhead little smile he has, it's annoying because, like, I love the guy so much, but I'm trying to get my point across by being like, oh, but I fucking hate him because he's this and that. But he's fantastic. He's mixing his fantastic heel character work alongside some genuine good, like, powerhouse brawling style work. He even introduced some gut busters, or maybe they were backbreakers, I can't really remember. He had a series of those on Ospreay, and I was like, I don't think I've seen those before. That's like a nice little thing. And obviously Ospreay, the story here was that he's having his abdomen worked over, and in typical Ospreay fashion, he's selling relatively largely, to use that term, a lot of screams where he's like, ah! And, people love to criticize Ospreay for his selling, and some people try to attack those attacks by saying, oh, but you guys used to say he never sells, but now he sells too much. You guys are contradicting yourself. And just to defend, or I guess attack that point itself, so I'm attacking the attack on the attack, people would criticize Ospreay's long and short-term selling. They would say, oh, he's had his arm or leg worked over, now he's not selling it 5 minutes later after he was supposedly being in total pain from it. But there's a difference between that and what people are criticizing here with Ospreay's real-time selling, which is when, immediately after, contact from his, his opposition, if they're, hitting a power move or a strike, Ospreay will let out some relatively feminine screams. And look, when I'm watching Ospreay matches with my casual friends, they themselves will sort of start to chuckle to themselves hearing Ospreay go like, and I understand it is rather comedic to hear this guy who's, supposedly the king of the year or whatever his new moniker is, making these sort of wimpy sort of sounds, but I will take that over Ospreay not selling at all, because I do think there is, he still does make a good story by constantly reminding you, oh yeah, his character's in pain. Okay, maybe he sounds a bit goofy, but, he's still doing a fantastic job in general showing that he is, at the mercy, well, I guess at the mercy, is that the right term? No, because he'll be taking mercy. He's what am I trying to say? I'm just going to say it outright. Whenever I have these moments where I'm like, oh, what word am I trying to say? I just break it down into baby terms. So, Jay White, good at dominating Ospreay. That's what I meant to say. Ospreay was doing a fantastic job just getting across the idea that Jay White is this total destroyer. He's strategic, and that's what I love, because I guess I'll just finish up on Ospreay selling. His abdomen's being worked over for a long time, and Ospreay's doing a fantastic job selling the abdomen. There are still going to be the selling fetishists, the usual sort of people that you're going to see on Cage Match that are going to rate this match, 0 out of 10 or 1 out of 10 because, Ospreay stood up straight and arched his back, so that means he wasn't selling his abdomen for 0.4 seconds. You're still going to get those people, but all throughout this match, Ospreay was doing a fantastic job of still executing his usual offense, but still referencing that his abdomen was in pain. And it even played into the story of how he couldn't hit the Stormbreaker because, that takes so much out of his abdomen, because then he has to totally, straighten out his body, which, puts emphasis on his core, which has been worked over so heavily. But I'll get into that a bit later. What I was going to say was, I also loved this match because of the strategy of Jay White. We already said that we, had a bit of strategy at the start, how he's immediately, leaving the ring because he doesn't want Ospreay to dictate the pace. And obviously that sounds like, maybe I'm reaching, maybe that's just, maybe then anything is strategic, maybe Jay White isn't as strategic as I'm saying, but I am going to, point out a few things that I thought showed Jay White is one of the most intelligent wrestlers to this day, and it's not hyperbole. It's not just because he's a fellow Kiwi either. He is genuinely a fantastically intelligent wrestler. So, what is this fantastic strategy and intelligence from Jay White, you ask? Fellow listener, to me, Lewis of Pure Grade Puroresu, the idea that I love so much from Jay White is that he's constantly trying to preempt and read Ospreay's attacks. So, Ospreay goes up to the ropes, Jay White is immediately there to throw him off. It's almost like he's allowing Ospreay to get into a sense of security where he's like, okay, Ospreay's thinking to himself, okay, I've got Jay White here, now I can go for this move. But Jay White, the idea is that he's focused Ospreay, he's followed him for a while, he knows what he's going for, so he can preempt these attacks and then get in a counter or, evade Ospreay's move, and then that gives Jay White back the advantage. And I love that shit because Jay White is constantly doing that. And, as I've said before, I love, obviously I love, good in-ring work, and that's what we've usually criticized Jay White for. But here, I was thinking to myself, damn, he is telling a fantastic story, all the psychology. And look, there was a video I pointed out earlier by a guy called Puroresu where he sort of went into the psychology that Jay White adds into his match, and all those moments that were brought up in that video, they were also, we also saw Jay White execute those here in this match, but there were way more other moments that I also love. There was also a great moment where Jay White, he's in the center of the ring, and Ospreay, because he can't go for the Stormbreaker, because Jay White's targeted his abdomen so much, he's thinking to himself, okay, I'm going to have to go back to my old finisher, the Os Cutter. And so Ospreay's trying to set Jay White up for that, but, Jay White, rather anticlimactically, he just drops to the mat, and then he just starts, smugly chuckling. And that's a bit, it sort of feels a bit, well, as I said, anticlimactic. It's like, okay, so Ospreay is trying to set up for this big moment, and then Jay White just, falls to the mat? And it's meant to come across that way because the idea is, Jay White, he's fucking strategic because he realizes Ospreay can't hit any, he can hit some big moves from that position, but he can't hit the Os Cutter, which would otherwise end the match if Jay White isn't standing up. And it's so basic, but you realize, okay, in the kayfabe world where, wrestlers need to be in exact positions for the other wrestlers to hit their moves, this makes total sense why Jay White would do that. And it had the added benefit of it being anticlimactic because the fans, they're getting excited. They want to see Ospreay hit his cool, aerial-based moves. And so then you have that extra layer of the audience being totally let down by Jay White simply refusing to take the move. And it's funny because in kayfabe, I guess we ourselves are not in kayfabe, but like if we were treating this as real, we wouldn't really be booing Jay White for getting out of the way of Ospreay's attacks. You don't really hear like in UFC, like someone getting booed because they managed to get out of a predicament where they're about to be, choked or something, or, locked in an armbar. Or we don't say, oh man, boo, you moved out of the way of that roundhouse kick or that flying knee. We don't like you anymore, But because he's such a great heel, we immediately say, oh damn, he's acting intelligently, but because we don't like him, we don't like that he's showing us to be dumb because he's smart, which means that we're dumb for not liking someone smart. That's basically my little pretentious take on that for the week. But I really enjoyed the story that Jay White was putting down, and he was really the one leading the story, but Ospreay was playing into it fantastically because Ospreay still comes off as, the hero who's being totally unfairly, I guess strategized against by Jay White with all these little shenanigans, and Jay White was still getting in, some interference from Goto, and, he even hit a low blow at one moment, and I was like, oh god, please don't end the match this way. But yeah, all throughout, both guys worked fantastically, and it wasn't only, that's the best thing about this match, it wasn't only the story they told that made this match great, but look guys, get ready for this. Jay White can fucking go in the ring. We thought he was just a storyteller. We thought he was just a character. We thought he was just a heel. Holy shit. And I don't blame us for thinking that because a lot of his other in-ring performances since he came back haven't been fantastic, but goddamn, he had his fucking working boots here. And alongside Ospreay, this ended up being fucking fantastic. We got some amazing interactions between those two. So keep in mind that, we've got all the story and psychology of, Ospreay's abdomen being challenged, being totally destroyed, worked over by Jay White. We've got Jay White showing all the strategy and how he's preempting all of Ospreay's moves, trying to outsmart him, lure him into positions which actually give Jay White control. And then add on that we're getting a typical, fantastic final 10, 15 minute stretch from, typical New Japan standards, big moves, exchanges suddenly coming out of nowhere. It was fantastic. The first thing that really was moving the match from being just great into, over great territory was when I believe Jay White, he was sort of being really, typical, smug prick in the corner against Ospreay, and then Ospreay just powered him up into the cheeky Nando's position and immediately, hit the kick, and from there, the match just had a totally different tone. After that, we got a really great moment where Ospreay, he picked Jay White up on his shoulders, in the electric chair position, he went up to the ropes, and this must be easier than it looks, because it looks fucking impossible. He has Jay White up on his shoulders, and he manages to climb the ropes up to the top rope, and then he hit it was almost like a double-winged angel, because it looked exactly like Omega's one-winged angel, except he basically kept both legs either side and he just flipped Jay White over. And that was another moment where I'm like, okay, this match is getting, very, very serious. And from there, the chemistry between these two was basically perfect. Everything they were doing was having fantastic impact. It looked beautiful. The technique was totally on point. There's great strategy again with Jay dropping down to the mat to avoid Ospreay's Os Cutter. As I said, I sort of jumped ahead when I talked about that earlier on. And then when Ospreay went for the Os Cutter once again, Jay White this time, because he's had time to recover, he caught Jay White. He immediately took his back in a sort of like a faux sort of jiu-jitsu position, and then he started delivering those very, very stiff elbows right to Ospreay's face. And that's been a staple of Jay White's offense for quite a while. I remember he was using that all the way back in 2017. I think someone said it was like a tribute to Daniel Bryan, because I know he had something similar. And it was awesome to see him bring that out again. And Ospreay did a fantastic job of real-time selling here. Well, I guess sort of real-time and short-term selling, because immediately after Jay White had delivered a massive flurry of those elbows, Ospreay was genuinely acting like he'd been knocked out. Like, he was sort of like craning his head forward and his body was sort of, squirming around, and his face looked totally like sort of cold and detached. It was fantastic. It was really, really scary. I was genuinely thinking to myself, okay, Ospreay, you're doing a bit too great of a job selling here, Is this the universe paying you back for supposedly KOing Ibushi at Wrestle Kingdom? We still don't know, like, at least I still don't know if that was real, by the way, if Ibushi actually was KO'd, because I heard some podcasts saying, oh nah, surely he wasn't. They had Young Lions putting on, his protection neck stuff. Why wouldn't they have the doctor do that? And then I was hearing other people say, oh no, he was genuinely taken out. That's why he literally did not wrestle for 3 months. There's no other reason. So just a little aside there. We continue getting some fantastic moments. My notes just say, oh my god, Ospreay bringing out his reverse Frankensteiner and hip blade. And the hip blade is that nasty little like sort of I guess it's sort of like a tricep sort of strike, isn't it? He sort of he usually hits it, like the idea is he hits it with his elbow, but he usually sort of puts his tricep to actually make the contact to sort of give the illusion of his elbow hitting it. But those moments were fucking fantastic. That might have been the best moment. And I was like, okay, Jay White, usually everyone looks fantastic when they have the reverse Frankensteiner delivered against them. Can you do it? And yeah, he was keeping up with it. And Jay White, the other beauty of his character is that he is so fucking smug and full of himself and so just happy to be, totally be the center of his own world. When he has to sell someone's offense big time, like Ospreay, it feels big, because it's like, okay, this guy, he acts so dominant, and then he's getting totally schooled by Ospreay with all these amazingly creative, impactful, powerful, creative moves. When you see this dude who's acted all powerful doing this shit, it's like, okay, Ospreay is a serious threat. And that's what I love, because both guys all throughout this match were basically putting each other over. Jay White was showing that he is a serious contender in terms of strategy, and also that he could be a bit of a powerhouse and he could still keep up with Ospreay. And Ospreay was showing that, even though he can fall for all of Jay White's, strategy and, cheap tricks, he still has an amazing gift, a kayfabe gift to just bringing out moves at, non-stop pace and never giving up. So yeah, I thought, like, as I've said, both guys just complemented each other brilliantly. They've had two fantastic matches. Let's hope for a third one, obviously, but I'm not done. I'm not yet done with this amazing, amazing match. The match just keeps revving up and one-upping every single sequence that came before it. We got a fantastic moment, which was actually a callback to Ospreay's match against Okada at the previous year's anniversary show, where, and this also has its own little unique twist on that. God, I love these little details about this match. So, Jay White, he's going to hit the Blade Runner on Ospreay, but Ospreay, he counters that into his, well, I guess basically a Liger bomb. And it was in the exact same way that he countered Ospreay's Rainmaker at the time to hit a very similar move. So he flips around Okada at the time, just like here, he flips around Jay White, and then he sort of gets immediately into the powerbomb position, lifts him up, and hits a disgusting, brutal looking Liger bomb. And the idea there is that, hey, it's always Jay White who's reversing other wrestlers' signature moves or finishes into his own finishing move. And here it was Jay White who had his own finisher reversed into, I guess, what may as well count as one of Ospreay's own signature moves, because, he uses that wraparound counter into a powerbomb spot. He uses that relatively frequently. Then we got another amazing moment where Ospreay hits what I think is one of the most beautiful wrestling moves I've ever seen, and it's always from him. Ever since his match against Taguchi in the finals of the 2016 Best of the Super Juniors, I've always thought his imploding 450 splash is one of the most beautiful aerial moves I've ever seen. He hit that again, but again, guys, psychology, story, it's a 450 splash, but because Ospreay's had his abdomen worked over the entirety of the match, he can't immediately go for the pin because he's in so much pain. And Ospreay, because he has to be so close to the ropes in order for Ospreay to actually, for Jay White is so close to the ropes in order for Ospreay to actually reach him with the 450 splash, alongside the time that Jay White is given as Ospreay has to recover from his 450 splash, Jay White just manages to get a few fingers onto the rope, and that was beautiful, because you see Jay White right against the ropes, totally glazed over look, but he's still smart enough to know, be aware of his surroundings, show that, instinct, and just grabs the ropes with two fingers, which really emphasize, again, little details, guys, the few fingers on the ropes, emphasizing that Ospreay was so damn close. As never champion who's just, been, just graduated from being a junior, he was that fucking close. He was 2 fingers away from pinning the IWGP heavyweight champion. But, Jay White still got the strategy, still got, the natural instinct to be, a totally calculated killer. And from there, we just got some, more amazing teasers and counters of moves, back and forth. I would be fucking insane if I went through and listed all those moments. It's like, we've got the typical Ospreay stuff where he's, going for the super kick to the head, and we've got Jay White keeping up with him magnificently. Like, I generally haven't seen Jay White this energetic and this committed to, keeping up a very strong pace ever since his match with Ospreay 2 years ago, as I keep mentioning. And I'm really losing my voice, as I usually do with these episodes, but I was exasperated watching this match. I was like, God damn, how can this match be so good? I never want this to end. This is one of those matches where you want, some really lame fucking NXT crowd to chant, fight forever. That's one of these matches. And I guess the only real criticism I had is the ending, because the idea is that, as I've said, Ospreay, he can't hit the Stormbreaker. He's tried multiple times, but he's like, nah, my abdomen is fucked. My core cannot take the stress that comes with trying to lift someone, especially someone of the size and stature of Jay White, up onto my shoulders to hit the Stormbreaker. So he's like, okay, I got to go old school. I got to go for the Oscutter. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what do we know about Jay White? I already mentioned it before. We know that he reverses your finisher into his own finisher. And it's an awesome idea. I really love that that's also, playing into the psychology of his matches and also his character. But here, it was a bit anticlimactic because Ospreay came off the ropes, to supposedly hit the Oscutter, although I don't really understand the kayfabe reasoning for why in this moment Ospreay would have turned his body entirely around. That comes off as totally counter to the move. But, I guess it's wrestling. You got to sort of get past that. And Jay White slams him down. But in real time, they did it so smoothly, like it was too smooth because I didn't register it. I actually thought like I understood, okay, maybe they were trying to go for that, but I don't think they actually connected with Jay White hitting the Blade Runner on Ospreay as he came down. It almost looked like Jay White just threw Ospreay over his shoulder instead as like a mere sort of push away counter or evasion. And then we saw a replay and we saw, oh no, they actually did this like move perfectly, but because of the weird angle that Ospreay had to turn his body and the positioning of where Jay White was in the ring, it didn't come across that way and it was very underwhelming. But then Jay White picked Ospreay up once more and then he hit a proper Blade Runner. That was probably a bit of a retcon, where they were like, okay, they probably realized, okay, shit, that wasn't as smooth as we wanted. They could probably tell, like they themselves would have thought it was good in real time. Then they would have heard the crowd, not really biting, being a bit, suddenly quiet, being like, oh wait, what happened, a bit deflated. So, quick thinking, Jay White being like, okay, I'm going to have to hit this move over again. And, there's no real big issue there. The idea was that Jay White was totally destroyed by Ospreay at that point anyways, but, obviously he's got that natural instinct, as I keep, harping on about, natural awareness of his surroundings, 1000 level IQ, in-ring IQ. He's like, okay, I've hit one Blade Runner to weaken Ospreay and to save myself some time. Now I'm going to hit a proper Blade Runner, and that's, in kayfabe, when you hit a move without the proper setup, like you got to think Naito's Destino without the arm wrap, or Okada's Rainmaker without the, well, I guess also the arm wrap. You got to think that's also the case here with Jay White, where it's like in kayfabe, hitting, even if he did hit the Blade Runner counter to the Oscutter perfectly, in kayfabe, you could still imagine he'd be like, oh no, but I got to go for a second one because it's not as powerful without the proper setup. So I didn't really mind that. That was the only one issue I had with this match. And again, this was still a fantastic, amazing match. I love this so much. This is the sort of match where I'm immediately going on the New Japan subreddit being like, does anyone else share my opinions? Does anyone else think this match was awesome? Because I was really worried. Like, I don't really care about this stuff, but I was sort of worried like, oh, people are still going to be on the, Jay White sucks train. And obviously Ospreay's a very polarizing figure himself. People are probably going to, shit on this match, but it's getting, relatively good ratings. I think we have like under like 30 or so ratings on Cage Match, and it's got I think like an 8.6 or so. So it is getting some plaudits, which I really appreciate. I actually surprisingly thought this was better than Ospreay's match with Okada last year. I never expected that. I never expected Jay White to get a better match out of an opponent than Okada, because like Okada is my dude. Okada's my boy. Okada's my favorite of all time. And Jay White, a fellow Kiwi, just like me, we're the exact same person, we have the exact same qualities because we come from the same nation. He somehow managed to get an even better match out of Ospreay. But look, hats off to both guys. This match was fucking fantastic. I really can't wait to watch this again, with my casual friends. I have to give this about 4.25 to about 4.5. You guys, if you've been following me for a while, I'm very, I guess the right term to say is I'm very like sort of particular about my ratings, I guess. So, when I say it's like 4.25 to 4.5 stars, to a lot of people, and I feel like I always have to justify this, a lot of people probably think, well, damn, you just went on about how awesome this match was. Why aren't you giving this like, 5 stars or near 5 stars? And I guess I personally think I take my ratings very seriously. And so look, a 4.25 to 4.5 star match, that is, as I've said, that's leagues above pretty much every other match I've seen this year. It was fantastic. I think it was genuinely, it's probably going to end up being in my top, 10, if not top 15 or 20 matches of the year, I think it's probably going to be solidly in the top 10 matches, although, hey, with New Japan, we never know how many great matches they're going to give us. But so very, very awesome match. I'm surprised at the, relatively low rating at 8.6, but I guess it really is that polarization of Ospreay and Jay White that led to that. But I love this match. Jay White has totally proven me wrong. I thought he was just a great character, with a bit of charisma, but turns out he can keep up with the best of New Japan's roster. He kept up with Ospreay. That's definitely the benchmark for can you wrestle a New Japan match. So we've got that covered. And I just hope he continues being this strong. I wasn't super impressed with his match against Tanahashi. I thought he had an awesome match against Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. Now he has a phenomenal, fantastic, outstanding match with Ospreay here. Let's hope for the best for Jay White. I still think I still think if Okada wins the New Japan Cup, I think Jay White might lose the title at MSG, but I am still inclined to think Jay White's going to end up losing the title at Dominion. And then I think he'll probably be kept away from the title for a bit longer as New Japan, is like, okay, we've established him as a main event star. Now we need to really start developing him without the title. That's the direction I think we're going to go. If you still can't really appreciate what Jay White has to offer, then I'm not going to criticize you. I'm not going to call you dumb and this isn't like me being backhanded. I generally, don't think that, but I do think you're missing out on so much of what Jay White has to offer. He is totally different from every other champ we've had. Even AJ, AJ was really the last heel champion we had, and even then he was a bit too flashy and still too genuinely good in ring, too exciting to be like a full-on heel. He had sort of been turned babyface by the crowd. By the time he'd left, fans were really into him, but with Jay White, he gets such a visceral hate from the crowd, and but it's the type of hate where they love to hate on him. It's a sort of love-hate relationship in that point. And as I said, if he can keep up this trajectory, I think he is actually going to end up sort of going down the AJ path of being a heel who's actually so good and so interesting and so unique, such a a breath of fresh air in New Japan, which was never stale, but it did have its formula. I think that's going to end up turning Jay White heel. They actually did pan to some girl in the crowd who had a switchblade sign with I think maybe some love hearts or something on it, and it's like, oh, okay, that's adorable. He is starting to win over maybe a bit of the female base. I also think the male fan base, and well, obviously, and female fan base, not to be sexist here, I do think both of them are going to actually start buying into not only Jay White's character but also his in-ring, as they see, oh wow, he brings so much strategy to his matches, so much psychology. Look, I feel like I keep ending my little thoughts on Jay White, but then I'm like, oh no, wait, but I got to compliment him on this and this. I guess this is sort of me making up for being so down on him at the New Beginning in Osaka or Sapporo show, whichever one it was, where he won the title, because the match itself, that was relatively highly regarded by a lot of people. I think they got an 8 or so rating on Cage Match, and I think Meltzer gave it 4.5 stars, but I was sort of down on it. I gave it 3.25 to 3.5 stars. I was like, okay, it was an okay match, but a bit too much focused on Jay White's style. But now that I think about that, I think that was genuinely just because Tanahashi isn't the sort of person who can get a good match out of Jay White, because I think they're both too focused on story, because I think usually a good match, you need someone, maybe you need someone who's good on story, but then you also need someone who can be very athletic. And I guess just having two guys, Tanahashi and Jay White, who at least currently are very story and psychology based, it's sort of made for a bit of an uninteresting match in ring. But for the millionth time, Ospreay's amazing. What do you expect when you put him against Jay White? And Jay White kept up magnificently. A great match and a great, fantastic, amazing way to end the show. Even though there was only one match on the show that I ended up giving a great rating to, which was the main event, which was again 4.25 to about 4.5 stars, this entire card was awesome. There were no bad matches on this card. Maybe you could skip the opening match, but even then, that wasn't bad. That was good. Everyone worked really hard in that, except for maybe Makabe and Yano. I gave that 2.75 stars. And then we had Nagata and Hanare versus Ishii and Yoshihashi. Again, everyone worked really hard. I'm excited for Ishii versus Nagata. I also thought Hanare stood out himself. I gave that 3.25. Then we had the Suzuki-gun versus New Japan Army match. That was another very surprising match where everyone was randomly working hard, and it's like, you guys don't really have anything, well, at least the majority of them don't really have anything big coming up. Why are you guys putting in so much effort, especially Taguchi and Tucker? But another really good match. Well, another relatively good match, 3.25. Then obviously there was a bit of the disappointment because Hiromu never came out, and I just mentioned that because this match I just talked about was the one with Dragon Lee, so that put a bit of a damper on the show. But from there, things just continued being great. We had Shingo and Bushi versus Sho and Yo. As I said, a very solidly good match, 3.5 stars. I'm not hopeful that the junior tag titles are going to be respected, but we'll see where we go. Then we had Ishimori versus Liger, a rather unique match, both guys showing off the extent of their abilities, a nice mixture of styles. I gave that 3.75, so a very, very good match there. there. Then we had the random sort of, stacked tag match with Okada, Tanahashi, and Goto versus Naito, Sonata, and Evil. Again, not much, well, there wasn't too much interesting stuff here in terms of creativity. It followed the formula, but again, those 6 wrestlers, they're great at minimum, world class, some of the best wrestlers ever at best. So that was solidly good. Again, 3.5 stars. And then the Jay White versus Ospreay match, which I shall not go on about anymore. I've given 20 minutes at least to that. You guys don't want to hear me go on about that anymore. But obviously the standout match, what do you fucking think? It's Jay White versus Ospreay. Standout wrestler, I think I do have to give it to Jay White. I would give it to Ospreay because Ospreay was fantastic in every aspect of what being a wrestler requires. He had everything. He had selling, he had aerial moves, strike moves, he had story, he had psychology. He worked brilliantly along Jay White. But I do think Jay White, just for proving fans wrong, proving the doubters wrong, and vindicating the fans, showing, oh yeah, he can wrestle a traditional New Japan match, and he can make it sort of still fit into his unique style. For that reason, I just have to say Jay White was definitely the standout wrestler on the show. And yes, finally we come to the end of the show. I'm gonna go edit this and upload it, and you guys are all gonna listen to this, and it's gonna be beautiful. So if you want to check me out on Twitter, I am Pure Grade Puro. That's Pure Grade Puro. The show Pure Grade Pro Res is on Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube. Some projects that I have coming up, look out for my Dragon Gate review for the Champions Gate. They had 3 shows. I actually think the third one was either tonight or it's tomorrow. So that's going to be 3 shows that I'm going to do in one. That could easily end up being a 2-hour review, or if I really try to work through it, it could be maybe an hour to an hour and a half. There are a lot of championship matches. I really enjoy what I've seen from the shows thus far. So look forward to that. And guys, I'll catch you next time. Peace. Goodbye. See you soon. Goodbye.